But sometimes Shakespeare's characters are more subtle with their irony. When Richard II looks at his face in a mirror, he says to Bolingbroke, who has deposed him,
"A brittle glory shineth in this face. As brittle as the glory is the face. For there it is, cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport. How soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face."
The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face.
Say that again.
The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face.
The shadow of my sorrow? Ah. Let's see.
"The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face." This is both ironic and ambiguous. The situation seems to be about the grief and the emotions of the king, but those are the key lines. I think that what Bolingbroke really means here goes to the very heart of Richard II's nature. I believe that Richard is a player king in the sense that he plays a kingship, and his emotions are often more emotional indulgences which make a kind of play out of the reality around him. He turns the situation he finds himself in into a cue for emotional and dramatic display. And he does so here, and Bolingbroke catches him at it. Breaking the mirror and saying, "Mark how my sorrow has destroyed my face," is a dramatic and striking gesture, but Bolingbroke really sees through it. So the shadow of your sorrow really means the unreality of your sorrow. The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face, i.e. your false sorrow has merely destroyed your false, playerly face. In other words, Bolingbroke is telling Richard that his sorrow is as unreal as the rest of his public persona. Well, Dickie, you played this famously many years ago. How does that passage strike you coming back to it?
I think that the way I try to interpret Richard, the tragedy was that he never actually discovered himself. Even in moments like this, he doesn't really understand. He's in a state of almost perpetual bewilderment, and I think this is his tragedy. In the very beginning of the play, in the first few scenes of the play, when we concentrated very much on the, as you're saying, the player king, the show-off, the demonstrator, the sort of dandy-like, sometimes played homosexual king, which I think is wrong, but certainly the show-off king. And there are glimpses of his search for himself and his internal reality, perhaps as early on as the return from Ireland.
But of course there are moments when the king has that self-knowledge and he's ironic about himself, which we'll look at a bit later in the programme.
Yes.
It's an unfair test to just ask you to do that one bit.
Yes, I just wonder, well, I mean, I don't really think that what the little sequence we've just done, I wouldn't describe it as an example of either irony or ambiguity.
Well, not the sequence isn't, but your remark is, I think.
Well, not altogether, John. I mean, isn't it rather more saying it's not... If you're being ironical, then you're being disingenuous and saying something meaning the reverse of what you say. In this particular case, it's nearer to gentle sarcasm, actually, than to irony, I think.
Why I think it's irony is I think it does have the double meaning of irony, because to him, the remark seems to be a sympathetic remark of his state, and he takes the surface meaning, but actually you mean something else, and that's why you're making an ironic joke, because you know he won't understand you. Because
well, in that case, I did it wrong, because then I should have played it...
Where does sarcasm end, where does irony begin?
Less sarcastically, then. I mean, I didn't play irony then, I played gentle sarcasm.
Let's stick to this one point, because
Yep.
it is irony, because you are saying a surface thing which he thinks he understands, but you're really saying a criticism of him which he doesn't understand.
Well, then I should have said it as a surface thing.
Well,
and
I
not-
think we should
not
round it
reflection.
off by doing it again.
The other way. It'll probably come out
Well,
the same. but I'm not-
irony and ambiguity, you've got to play both meanings, haven't you?
Right, try again.
Yeah. For there it is, cracked in 100 shillings. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport. How soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face.
The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face.
Got it. Yeah. I'd give it to
Say
a mark.
it
Well, what's come out of this, of course, is always, as soon as we go into irony, this conversation comes up, which is how much is it overt and how much is it hidden. And I think this is a very good example where it's got to be both at once. Okay, good. Here's a particularly tricky sonnet. It's full of irony, but the irony isn't apparent at first. It is, amongst other things, a terrific exercise in